All right. Welcome again to this month's community call. So this month we are focusing, Carl's going to go through some education on how to interpret all that data that you receive from your clients in terms of wearables, and then how we can actually turn that into prescriptions that help not just supplement those other 23 hours that I know we kind of are really focused on, but then also how does it support their 1 hour in the gym with recovery performance, things like that. So I'll kick it off to Carl. He's going to go into some education. And then after that, we're actually going to go through a full live demo of both the mobile app and the web app for our new lifestyle trends and insights in our health kit integrations feature.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. Are most people here, maybe just throw it in the chat, are most people here for the education portion or the walkthrough demo portion? Honest question. All right. I think you guys are just telling me what I want to, I think you guys are just telling me what I want to hear. That was going to gauge if I go long or just wrap it up and go short. No, I'm kidding. Ashley, what did I say? I'd be finished in how many minutes?
Oh, we were going to take bets, weren't we?
I think I said 30, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I will be faster than 30.
Carl, can we also in the chat just drop in if you are a CoachRx user or not? And also if you have done OPEX CCP, be helpful information for us to know. I know Carl will tee this up, but as for those of you who are new to our community, OPEX has a long history in coaching education over 25 years. This is a huge passion of all of us that work here at OPEX. And CoachRx is actually really birthed off of the principles taught in OPEX CCP. So I know you'll hit on that, Carl, but just a nudge there in case, because I know you have a lot on on your brain right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Candace. Um, okay, I see those. I see those coming in. It looks like we have a decent amount of CCP coaches. All right. Let's get rolling. Ashley, you already hit the intention of the call, so I won't restate that. But this is I don't know. It's a good opportunity to bring it back and talk about lifestyle. It's funny because if we would have done because we used to do a lot of webinars that weren't connected to CoachRx, of course, before we had CoachRx, just education webinars. And it's funny because, we track obviously how many registrants we have for webinars and so on and so forth. If we would have done a lifestyle webinar 6 years ago, we would have probably had 1/20th of the registrations that we've had here. So, for you guys that don't know, you register and you get the recording. So most people don't join live; they just register and we send them the recording. And this is like one of our biggest webinars that we've done, and it's around lifestyle. So that makes me really happy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about lifestyle. We're going to talk about nutrition, and we're going to discuss the utility of wearables and other health data. And then we're also going to introduce how we're allowing coaches to coach lifestyle just a little bit smarter in CoachRx with our health data feature that we'll be releasing. So anyone that's on this call or anyone that registered for this call that's watching the recording, you guys will be the first ones that this gets leaked out to. So we're doing a big server update tonight overnight, and then we'll start seeing those leaked out. So if you don't already have access, we have a lot of beta users in this already. So if you don't have access already, you guys will be the first ones to gain access. And then, as Ashley mentioned, she's going to do a full demo of the feature in mobile as well as on the web. So you'll see what it looks like on the client side, and you'll also see what it looks like on the coach side to wrap up this call. Okay, so if this looks familiar for you guys that are LearnerX watchers, I did a class a couple of years ago, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and that class was just called Wearables. And this class was just all around like how can we use health data to be better coaches. So I'm going to take a lot of principles out of that class that I already created in LearnerX, and I'm going to connect it to this feature and kind of what led us to making decisions to, add this health data versus that health data, and then how we're displaying it and how it's all connecting to the lifestyle calendar and all of that stuff. as coaches, we know the power of habits and creating great habits. Unfortunately, the general population also knows this, but most of them just don't prioritize it. Okay, so for many years, we have seen lifestyle RXs pretty much fall by the wayside. Even when coaches prioritize their clients, do not seem to find them as important as the A, B's, and C's in their exercise program. So we generally see really solid compliance in exercise and exercise prescriptions, and we see pretty poor compliance in lifestyle and lifestyle prescriptions. And it's almost like the art of coaching, like how do we get clients to be connected to those things on a day by day basis. And something that we realized really early was it's just, I don't want to use the term impossible, but it's implausible to get, the majority of clients to fall as in love with their exercise program as with their lifestyle program. So we're like, okay, how do we fill that gap and how do we do that through technology with CoachRx? So that was the big driver of this feature and of this feature connecting to the lifestyle calendar, just so that clients could do things or not do things or be compliant or be uncompliant without having to go on their phone and let you know, right? So it's just like the automation or automatically generating objective measures through wearables is kind of the intention here. So what you're seeing on the screen, I didn't confirm. You guys do see my screen, right? Okay, so what you guys are seeing on the screen is the framework that we laid out in this course. So it's like, okay, how do we get someone from self-reliance or relying on health data and wearables to, go about their daily life because we've seen that over the past probably about decade since like Whoop became really big back in 2015 2016, where people got a Whoop band and they're just like collecting a bunch of data and they're not doing anything with that data except looking at it, stressing out over it, and that data isn't really leading to any positive fruit. So what we did here is we're like, okay, we have this data. How can we framework this data in a way that leads to success? Okay, so we just call this like self-reliance to self-regulation. And there's 6 steps inside of this. So step number 1 is always having an intention. Okay, so what are we doing and why and what is the aim? Okay, so that stuff might sound familiar for the CCP coach. Next, we have to assess. Okay, where are they right now? Number 3, we have to have a prescription. What is the RX? What are we actually going to do about it? Number 4, we should have a strategy. Okay, so it's one thing to give someone a prescription. It's a completely different thing to say, hey, this is your prescription and here's your strategy to be successful within this prescription. Have you guys ever given someone like macros and you're just like, go off and have at it and hit this many grams of carbs, proteins, and fats, and then they're just like uncompliant because they have no strategy. They don't know how to do it. So maybe what you do is you might give them macros and then you might give them a strategy. Maybe that strategy is like maybe a sample, 3-day meal plan where it's like, hey, this is how you're going to hit, this is how you can hit this amount of carbs, proteins, fats, so on and so forth. So we should always have a strategy, or we should give our clients a strategy to lead to success. Okay. Number 5, we have a time frame. Okay. So how long are we going to do this? And this is really, really important when we are prescribing lifestyle. Okay. Like we've always said, right? Like we prescribe lifestyle to build habits so that we don't have to prescribe the same lifestyle prescription in the future. Okay. So think about you have a client year 1, month 1, and you're talking to them about hydration and how much water they ought to be drinking. And then you fast forward 4 years. Should you still be talking to clients about that and like giving them a hydration prescription in CoachRx? Probably not, right? That's still self-reliance, right? So the goal of lifestyle prescriptions is to build habits. Okay. So we should have a time frame that is agreed on between ourselves and the client. How long do we think we're going to do this? Okay. And then finally, we should have a success marker. Okay. So when will we know that we've succeeded? When will we know that we've succeeded? Okay. Because we have that intention and that aim, we should also be able to look back at that intention and that aim and to understand, have we reached it or not? And then what do we do? Do we continue the prescription or do we graduate because you now adopted this as a habit? Okay, so that's the framework that we're working within. And then as we wrap up today, I'll go through the data pillars, and as we wrap up, I'll just give a sample prescription that kind of brings each one of those steps to life. Okay. Any questions? Any thoughts on this, guys? Is that clear? Am I missing anything? Awesome. Okay. Before we move on, guys, it's just like, technology, just like everything else, has trade-offs. Okay. So we're going to talk about positives and negatives in tracking each one of these data pillars and how to overcome the negatives and how to lean into the positives. Okay. So every advancement in technology has pros and cons. Nothing is all good or all bad. Okay. You guys will probably remember a couple years ago when everyone was freaking out about AI. Um, Maybe there's a reason to still be freaking out about AI. I'm not sure. But a lot of coaches specifically have figured out how to leverage that and to free up some time or to better coach their clients. So I think there's some good from a coaching standpoint that's come from that technology. And then wearables, okay, wearables are not the answer, okay? Like this is it's cool to have objective data and all of that, but this isn't going to totally change your acumen as a coach, right? Wearables and technology and data, they're just tools to build awareness. And sometimes that awareness is the thing that convinces a client to be like, yeah, maybe I do need to take a look at this, right? You'll see it all the time where you're just like, just track your daily movement, right? Whether that's steps or just how much movement you get in a daily basis. And then someone sees like the objective measure on their device where it's like you take 385 steps per day and you move for 6 minutes on average, right? It's like that's awesome. That's awesome awareness because now you could have a conversation around that objective data that you're both looking at. So it's building awareness to build solid habits to lead to self-regulation. Okay, the four data pillars that we're going to talk about today, and these are the things that we focused on with this new feature. We're going to talk about sleep. We're going to talk about movement. We're going to talk about heart rate and HRV. We're going to more talk about HRV than heart rate because heart rate is just such this static thing that shouldn't move north or south too much on a daily basis. And then we're going to hit on nutrition as well. What we're going to talk about in each one of these pillars, we're going to talk about what the metric is. We're going to define it. Okay. What's being tracked within it. Some pros in tracking those metrics, some common pitfalls or some cons in tracking those metrics. Some prescription examples or like when or how to use these and navigate, client is showing A, what does B look like? What should I do based on that? And then we'll talk about how CoachRx trends and insights make it practical. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is sleep. Okay. Um, so when we're tracking sleep, we're tracking two things specifically. Okay, we're tracking sleep quantity and we're tracking sleep quality. Okay. So when we start talking about what sits inside of that, number one, it's just duration of sleep, right? So that would sit inside of quantity. Okay. So what's inside of sleep duration? We have things like latency, right? Latency just means when we lay our heads down, how long does it take us to actually fall asleep? Okay. That could be a good data measure, right? If someone's taking 45 minutes, that's not a good thing. If someone's taking 45 seconds, that's also not a good thing, right? So that's some good information. Latency. We're tracking time in bed. Okay, so it's one thing to say, get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And someone's like, man, I am getting 7 hours of sleep. It's like, no, you're in bed for 7 hours, but you're sleeping for five, right? So time in bed. And then we look at that compared to time sleeping. And then those two numbers together equal efficiency. Okay, so we want our efficiency to be high. Okay, we don't want to be in bed for 8 hours and sleep for five. If we're in bed for 8 hours, maybe 7:15, 7:30 is what we want to sleep, right? So that would be sleep efficiency. Then we have within that we have phases of sleep. So how much of the sleep am I getting? Deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep. Okay. So we won't get into all of those things today, but it's important to understand the benefits of each one of those because there's a lot of benefits in deep and light and of course in REM sleep as well. So when you pull up CoachRx and you're looking at trends in deep and light and REM, there's some good data that you can pull from that. And there's some nudges of like, hey, this might be going on because your client is not getting a lot of deep sleep or REM sleep. Okay. And then we look at quality. We're essentially just looking at, um, or the wearable is looking at interruptions throughout the night, and it's looking at movement throughout the night. Okay. So interruptions and movement. So common pitfalls. Okay. So what are some bad things that come about when we ask people to track sleep? Number one, I think this is probably the biggest one. It's obsession, right? Obsessing over poor sleep scores. Do you guys ever, I used to do this all the time in the military days when I was like, oh my gosh, I got to wake up at 3 a.m. How many hours of sleep? And I'd like reverse engineer like how many hours of sleep I get. But have you guys ever like laid in bed and you can't go to sleep and you're just like, well, if I go to sleep right now, I'm going to get 6 hours. If I go to sleep right now, I'm going to get 5:30, right? That's like obsession, right? Like you're just thinking about it too much. Okay. So sometimes and this kind of connects to readiness as well. Okay. Sometimes when someone has a poor sleep score or they don't get a lot of sleep, that kind of just like sits in their mind that entire day where they just like think they can't operate the next day because they didn't get good sleep. So sometimes obsessing over sleep scores can actually lead to negative outcomes because it's just on our minds all day. It can increase stress around sleep. Um, Poor data can demotivate as well, right? Like wearables aren't 100% accurate, right? Like the goal is we want to find a wearable that is consistent so we can track trends over time, but wearables are not 100% accurate. None of them. None of them are 100% accurate. So sometimes we'll get poor data, and that poor data, just like absolutely not trending, can be demotivating for some people. Okay. Um, and I think it's important for all of us to understand like these wearables aren't actually tracking sleep, right? We know that they're just tracking correlatives, right? If we're not moving, if our heart rate is here, if our breath rate is here, we're probably sleep. So it's not actually tracking sleep, it's just tracking all those other things and discerning like they must be sleeping because these other things are occurring, right? So these things are not perfect, not even close to. And another pitfall, I'd put this up there with the obsession piece, is most people don't really do anything with the data. They just track it obsessively, right? They're just tracking sleep night over night over night over night, and they don't do anything with it. Okay, some pros in tracking sleep. Okay, it makes sleep a priority, so people are actually thinking about sleep. They're prioritizing their sleep. It gives objective data to track and improve over time. So when we go back to the previous slide, when we go to like assessment and success, right, that data is important, right? The data helps. And then it gives insights into what might be negatively impacting sleep. Anyone here that's tracked sleep before, you guys have definitely seen if I eat too close to bed, maybe that affects the quality of your sleep. For the alcohol drinkers, like if I drink alcohol, that's going to affect my quality of sleep, right? Things like that. Okay. The amount of movement that you do on a daily basis or lack of movement that you do on a daily basis, we could probably correlate to that negatively or positively impacting our sleep. Then when we start talking about when to prescribe this, right? Like what are use cases of tracking sleep? Just a general sleep assessment tool, right? I think everyone should be aware of if they get quality sleep or not. So we could just track it to say, hey, you get quality sleep or not. Maybe you're not doing anything with that data, but just a good assessment tool to build awareness around sleep behaviors. Okay. Again, going back to the insights around what might be negatively affecting sleep. Awareness is key, right? Everything starts with awareness. To track if latency time decreases, based on sleep hygiene prescriptions, right? So if you're giving someone a sleep hygiene prescription, it's like, are you getting to bed faster? Is your sleep efficiency score increasing based on those sleep hygiene prescriptions? It's not always about just like a sleep score and hours of sleep. Okay. Maybe you're giving someone a new nutrition protocol. Maybe you don't prescribe sleep, but you pull up CoachRx and you're just looking at that trending sleep data and you're just in the back end, like looking like, hey, we just dropped, carbohydrates by 50%. Is sleep being negatively or positively impacted by this, right? So you can track if nutrition intervention is effective for sleep improvements as well. What do you guys think? Any thoughts on sleep? Feel free to take yourselves off mute. Anything to add?
I love sleeping, Carl. I do try to prioritize it, and I do notice all of the things that you just said that definitely impact quality of sleep and the pressures around getting good quality sleep. I definitely notice a difference in my functioning the next day and my appearance and my skin, and I feel like it is definitely the number one lifestyle habit, and I see why you put it first.
Yeah. Quality of sleep kind of runs my life. It's like, is this gonna affect my sleep? If something's gonna affect my sleep, I usually don't do it. So yeah. So maybe obsession is a pitfall of mine when it comes to sleep.
You might get into this, Carl, too, in terms of like when this is a fundamental prescription. Obviously, like beginning someone new to adopting better lifestyle habits, but probably something good to just periodically. Obviously, now coaches can periodically monitor this and recognize if there's an issue that correlates with another circumstance that's showing up in training or in stress levels or just in you're noticing behavioral changes in consultations or interactions with clients, you can refer back to this. But it may also be something that maybe they're not always wearing an aura, but like sporadically might recommend just checking in on sleep for a week at a time to see how it's trending.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Ashley will walk through this when she does the demo, but I think that's probably one of the most powerful things about this feature is that it's like you guys will definitely get some clients that are like, hey, this is a little bit revealing, right? Like you're seeing everything, right? And they can obviously decide what you can see and what you can't see or what they're giving you access to and what they're not. But to be able to sit down, before 5 minutes before a consult and look at like over the past month, what does sleep look like for Monica, right? Like what does movement look like for Monica outside of the gym? All those things, like it arms you with really good data to have conversations around, right? And how much value is that bringing, right? When a client sits down and they think you're just going to talk about like the bicep curls and map work that you're doing. But you're just like, hey, I see that over the past, 30 days, you've been sleeping an hour and a half less. Everything good, right? And that might take you into a whole new realm in terms of your ability to consult with your clients. So yeah, I agree with that, Candace. Okay, movement.
Sorry, just one question on
Yes, yes. Yeah,
on
dude.
the it's more because I tried this and I love all the new features, but a question is, will it be possible to for the client hide the data? So maybe I as a coach track the sleep, but because I got these questions from one of my clients, she wanted to track the sleep, but she didn't want to see the results. So it would just be just me as a coach tracking the sleep and having that information going into the consult, but she was afraid of obsessing over the data.
Yeah, that's a good thought. We don't have the ability to do that right now, Daniel. We actually haven't even talked about that, honestly. We talked about prioritization and coaches being able to hide stuff from their trends dashboard. Um, but yeah, that's a good thought. We'll talk to the team about that. I like that.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Next piece is movement. Actually, I'm technically still on time. I think we started 15 minutes late. Okay. Movement. So here we're talking about steps and activity. Okay. Steps and activity. So, goal here, guys, it's just building awareness around movement outside of the gym. Building awareness around movement outside of the gym. Okay. Just so that we're all on the same page, modern wearables, they use pedometers, they use GPS, they use accelerometers or modern pendulums to track the number of steps and or just movement on a day by day basis. So if you guys wear, an Apple Watch versus a Whoop or a Whoop versus an Aura or an Aura versus a Garmin, you'll notice that you'll get, three different scores, right? It's just because their technology is a little bit different in terms of what they're using to track movement and steps or their algorithm to spit out that absolute raw number. Okay. So urge your clients to just stick with one device for those things. And you guys will notice, like, once you're in the back end, you'll have the ability, your clients will have the ability to set a device priority for each one of these things, even if, they have 4 wearables for some reason, and all 4 of these wearables track the same data. Just have them be really consistent with where they're bringing that data in from. Okay. Again, accuracy is a big thing. Okay. So with all wearable devices, accuracy should always be taken into account. Okay. So pedometers, for example, they're about 5 to 10% off in terms of reality. But as long as you're using the same device and you're tracking it over time, the goal is to track trends. Okay. The absolute number means a lot less than those trends over time. Okay. So pitfalls, chasing scores. Data versus action. Okay. So it's just like I'm only worried about the data. Okay. Moving for a score, which I think there's some that kind of goes in like the pros and the pitfalls. Like I think it's cool to gamify things sometimes, but if that's the only motivation that someone has to move because they're going to get a good score, I would say that's probably not a great reason. And I only say it's not a great reason because I don't think that's going to last very long. Okay. So moving for a score would be a pitfall. It could be distracting from the benefits of just enjoying the enjoyment of moving, right? Especially getting outside, right? So if someone's just like looking at their watch as they're walking down the street and not just like enjoying nature, right? I think that's a pitfall. Some people are like prisoners of their step count. Um, they're doing laps in their living room just to hit a step count, right? They're moving for that score. And our habits are data versus action triggered, right? So, we're not going to build solid habits. Most people are not going to build solid habits if the goal is, I just need this data point to move. Okay. So those are some pitfalls. Pros, okay. So it creates awareness around someone's daily movement or lack thereof, like we talked about. It's an objective measure. I think that's so important. It's something that you can both look at and agree on, right? It's like the data is the data. Okay. Now what are we going to do about it? Again, like I mentioned, like gamification can also be a pro, okay, if used properly. And it gets people moving outdoors and in the sun, hopefully, right? So, you know, um, I think that there's some good downstream effects of someone chasing a score, right? Like maybe someone starts because they're chasing a score, but they continue because they figure out that they really love moving, they really love walking, right? So they build that as a habit, even though where they started was like malaligned, whatever that means. And then when to prescribe. So, lack of movement outside of the gym, right? You notice that someone's not moving outside of the gym. You notice that someone gets, zero sun exposure. Someone might have energy issues and you prescribe movement, okay? Um, Ideally out in the sun. Someone might have digestive issues, right? Prescribing movement, easy aerobics, or just walking or biking or hiking, right? To move blood, maybe after meals, right? All of those things. All right, next we have heart rate and heart rate variability. Okay. So resting resting heart rate, right? The lower our resting heart rate is, right? Absolutely, that equals efficiency. Okay. So when our resting heart rates are low, that means that our hearts are acting efficiently. Okay. When our resting heart rates are high, and low and high, guys, is so relative, right? So like if you were to pull up a textbook, it would say like, 60 beats per minute and lower are bradycardia, right? It's like, not really, right? So it's all relative. Okay. So relatively high resting heart rates would say that the person is inefficient, right? Or their heart is inefficiently pumping blood to the extremities. Okay. When we look at HRV, we can start to look at recovery trends. Is the training that we're doing, proper for that person? And the way that I would define proper for that person is can they recover from the training that I'm giving them? Okay. HRV specifically, to talk about that for a second, it's really complicated for a lot of clients to wrap their heads around, especially when they see HRV in a number form. Okay. Does anyone Does anyone not understand what HRV is and how we get there? Does everyone get that?
I'm not sure I do, Carl. You could, if you don't mind to explain a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so HRV measures the tiny differences in time between each heartbeat. Okay, so let me give you an example. If your heart beats 60 times in a minute, it doesn't beat one time every second at the top of that second. Okay, so it might beat at 1.02 seconds and then 0.98 seconds and then 1.05 seconds, etc. throughout. That variation, the variation between those heartbeats is your heart rate variability or your HRV. Okay. A higher HRV usually means that your body is more adaptable and recovered. Okay. So your nervous system is flexible. So the more, and that's like counterintuitive for a lot of people. They're just like, what do you mean? Like, don't we want everything to be like a flat line? It's like, no, no, no. We want more variability because that variability tells us that our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are both engaged and ready to go. Okay. A consistently low HRV can mean too much stress, too much fatigue, or too poor of recovery, or they're recovering poorly. Okay, wearables usually track HRV through sensors. So like if you have like a watch on, right? Like the wear that green light that's going through your skin, right? That's a sensor. What that's doing, that's detecting your heartbeat patterns. A lot of them are often tracking HRV at rest or during sleep. Okay, so the most common method of these wearables tracking HRV is something called an R wave, or the differences between the R waves. So the R waves are the spikes on an ECG. Okay, so it's like when you see your heart rate monitor do that, right? That's the R wave. So it's tracking the time between those R waves. Okay, so to kind of sum up HRV, it tells us how well our body is balancing stress and recovery. The more variability, the more adaptability. The less variability, the more stress on the system. Okay, so we need to remind our clients that there's no such thing as a good or bad HRV score generally. It's all relative to them. All relative to them. Does that make sense, everyone? We all get HRV? Cool.
Carl, I just dropped the link to the wearables course that you did in LearnerX as a reference too, because I know you go deeper on a lot of this there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Candace. I was gonna say, yeah, that's a good course, but I don't know if you can like call your own stuff good. Okay. When do we, it's kind of weird. It's like, when do you prescribe HRV? It's not really when you prescribe it. It's just like, when should you take a look at it, right? If it's there, look at it always. Okay. But if there's a lack of adaptation in a training program, right? Maybe take a look at HRV. It could be an objective measure of like, is our HRV going down over time? Okay. You can measure it to gauge dose response, right? Like, have you guys ever taken someone through like an an overreaching training phase? Sometimes we intentionally want HRV to go down if we're overreaching. Okay. So you'll sometimes see that in like for you guys that coach athletes, like a pre-competitive phase, right? You might want to overreach in some of those phases. So not that you're chasing low HRV scores, you're just looking at it and you're like, yep, we're definitely overreaching because we are struggling to recover, but that's okay. We're going to back off and deload next week. Okay. And it also measures the effects of just normal everyday lifestyle practices as well, right? You can start to see trends. You know, what is HRV on Monday through Thursday versus Friday through Sunday, right? That's a very clear picture, like how well someone's taking care of themselves on the weekend. Okay. Or maybe you just gave them some other lifestyle prescription, right? So now we're starting to connect these things. How is better sleep or this lifestyle prescription impacting HRV? How is more movement outside, more steps or whatever your prescription is, how is that affecting HRV and recovery, right? So we can start to kind of interconnect all of these things or that new nutrition program that you just gave that person. Any questions on that one, guys?
I guess I have a question, Carl. This seems like something that you would prescribe with a client who is super dialed in to all other lifestyle factors, like this, even for me, isn't something that I track myself. So like what population, I mean, is this for people who have like really kind of ironed out everything else? Like at what stage would you introduce this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to like I guess if I were to answer the question like introduce it, it's not that you're introducing it, Monica, it's just you're looking at it, right? So um I would look at it like if the data's there, it's like why not look at it? It's not going to do anything but give you more data, right? Give you more insight. It's almost like why do we love assessments as coaches? Because it gets us closer to the quote unquote answer. That's why I think coaches are obsessed with assessment, right? Because when we sit behind our computers and we're like designing a training program, it's like we want as much context as possible so we can design a better training program for that person. HRV is really no different. So HRV is one of those things where it's like you're never going to prescribe HRV, Monica. It's just something that you're looking at. Like you might prescribe something with the goal of HRV increasing, right? Like a nutrition protocol, a movement protocol. You're doing something differently in their training program. And then you're kind of just looking at HRV as a back end measure over time, but you might not ever be having a conversation with them. It's almost like a quote unquote cheat code for you on the back end to see like, is what I'm doing working, right? Are they
Okay.
recovering all that stuff? So it's relevant for everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, and we will close this piece out with nutrition. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time here. I think we know we know what proteins are, carbs are, fats, fiber, calories, all of those things. Okay. But we shouldn't ignore this stuff, right? To pull this data, we need someone to actually track their food. So barrier to entry to start playing in this game, it's like, is your client ready to start tracking food? Okay. There's so many reasons as to why so many clients are not ready, or it wouldn't even be beneficial for them to track food, right? Stress around, tracking every calorie and macro that's going in their bodies, right? That's not for everyone. Um, it's just too much stress to actually do the action of pulling up an app and tracking every meal, every morsel of everything that goes in their bodies, right? So I guess I say all that to say, like, before you start diving into this and pulling data for clients and nutrition, just make sure that you have a really good reason as to why they're tracking their food. And I think time frame is super, super important on this one. Because even if someone is uncomfortable, they're like, I just don't want to track my food. Like, it just takes too much time, it's too much effort, it's stressful for me. It's like if there's a reason why you're doing it and there's a time frame, like you could probably connect that for someone and say, "Hey, I want you to do this for a week. I want you to do this for 2 weeks, and this is the reason why I want you to do it." So just bounding them within that time frame could be a very efficient or effective thing, I should say, to get them to actually, take the time and do this. Okay. So what we're doing is we're giving you the ability to take a look at calories, protein, carbohydrates, fats, and fiber on the back end in your trends dashboard. Okay. To do that, they'll have to track their food, whether they're tracking it in MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, any of the other 1,000 macro tracking apps out there, as long as it's connected to like an Apple Health Kit or something like that. Okay. Um, Pitfalls here, we kind of talked about those already, right? Over tracking macros, relying on numbers without behavior change, overly stressful, quantity over quality. I know that's always an argument in the nutrition world. Um, you know, uh, Quick answer to that, they both matter. So, there's a lot of pitfalls, but there's also a lot of pros, right? What's actually going in your body, okay? Anytime you speak to anyone around, muscle gain, weight loss, whatever the conversation is, we can't ignore quantity and quality of food that's going into their bodies, right? So this does arm us with that objective data to take a look at, assuming that people are tracking honestly. Okay. So there's so many, we can go down a lot of rabbit holes on like ways to prescribe macros and all of that. I'm going to save our time. I'm not going to do that today. Just know that whatever the prescription is, your client's going to have to plug in nutritional information or macros in the back end so that you can see it. But again, I'll just say it again. Just make sure that you have a reason as to why people are tracking macros. And the first slide that we talked about, um, strategy, time bound, what does success look like, all of that. Just be really clear on that before you dive deep into tracking nutrition. All right. Ashley, I'm going to take 2 more minutes and I'm going to pass it over to you. Okay. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to throw, I'm not going to talk about all these guys. I just wanted to throw together some use cases of prescriptions inside of each of these data pillars and just talk about what the actual prescription would be. So a use case and what you could think about prescribing. So use case number one for movement would be client trains in the gym, but under moves in life. Okay. Maybe you as a coach, you're like, okay, I'm going to prescribe daily non-exercise movement goals, right? So an example would be like steps, right? I think that's the one that most people are attached to now, but it doesn't have to be steps. It could be total movement time, right? I want you to move for 45 minutes every single day, even on days that you're not exercising in the gym. Um, Use case number two, client lacks energy in the morning. How can we use movement to combat that? AM morning walks immediately after waking, right? No sunglasses, get out, expose your retinas to the sunlight, some really good stuff in setting circadian rhythm there. Okay. And we're also getting in some really good movement. Use case number three, client struggles with digestion, right? Hey, take a 10-minute walk after every meal. Okay. For you guys that know me that have been through CCP, that's my favorite prescription, right? Walk after you eat, walk after you eat. It solves so many problems if we just walk after we eat. Sleep prescriptions. Use case, client takes more than 30 minutes to fall asleep. A prescription could be a consistent bedtime routine. Maybe it's like shower, read, right? Not watch Netflix. Okay, that could be a good prescription. Client wakes up groggy. Again, you're going back to that morning sunlight and making sure that their wake time is consistent. Client's wearable shows low deep sleep. Okay, ensure they're not drinking alcohol prior to bed. No late meals. Maybe do that for 2 weeks and track trends over that 2 weeks to see if deep sleep increases over that time. Heart rate prescriptions, HRV inconsistent across weeks, right? Compare habits. How are they sleeping? How is nutrition? Are they moving with consistency, etc.? It's so interesting when you guys pull up that trend screen and you start to see like all of these trends moving. Just take a macro look at all of those modals on the screen, and you'll start to see these trends kind of moving up and down together. So we can very easily start to correlate how does nutrition, how does movement, how does this, how does that connect to other things that we're looking at. Another use case, maybe HRV shows a dip after high stress days, right? Add recovery walks, breathing post-stressful events. For the past probably 5 years, and most of my prescriptions, we do, 5 to 10 minutes of belly breathing after every single workout, right? That's helped so many people just kind of calm the system, go on about their day, and recover really well after that training session. And it's only 5 minutes. Another use case, resting heart rate remains elevated. So, over 5 beats per minute from baseline. Maybe now you're prioritizing low intensity training, earlier bedtime for a week, and see if you can start to combat those high resting heart rate numbers. Nutrition prescriptions, right? Client under eats protein. Maybe all that you're telling that client, maybe you're not even giving them macros. You're just saying, hey, I want you to track your food, but all I need you to do is I need you to eat protein 4 times throughout the day, and I want you to track that, right? Maybe it's the consistency or the times throughout the day in which they're having protein is the issue if they're not getting that protein. Client crashes in the afternoon. Maybe we make sure that all their lunches are prioritized to be balanced, right? We have a balanced amount of proteins and fats and vegetables in that meal, and we see if energy improves over time. Okay. Client reports energy swings, even carbohydrate distribution across 3 meals, no skip breakfast, right? That could be an example prescription for someone. And then finally, I just wanted to walk through a full, an example of a full sleep quantity prescription. So actually, filling in the gaps with intention all the way to success. Okay. So intention would be to increase sleep quantity from 6 to 7 hours. Okay. Assessment, before we do anything, let's just track sleep for 7 days. Let's see what we're working with. Let's confirm that they're actually not getting 9 hours of sleep. Okay. So we track that, we confirm, okay, yep, they're averaging like 6 hours of sleep. So now there's the prescription. Okay. So what we're going to do as coaches, we're going to implement a consistent before bed routine and sleep time. Okay. Yes, you're giving your clients a bedtime. Strategy. So we're going to anchor sleep and wake times. Okay. So it's like, Monica, I'm going to ask you to go to sleep at 9 o'clock and wake up at 6 o'clock every single day. Okay. We're going to anchor those sleep and wake times. Maybe we're going to say, hey, we want you to take a hot shower pre-bed, and we want you to do 15 minutes of reading, and we want you to track your sleep using your Aura ring. Okay. How long are we going to do this? We're going to do this for 4 weeks. So I need you to implement this bedtime routine for 4 weeks. Hey, if, Friday comes along and you miss it, not a big deal. Get back on it on Saturday. Okay. Don't overly stress about it. We're going to do this for 4 weeks. After that 4 weeks, we're going to reassess. What does reassessment look like? I'm just going to look at my screen and see if things are improving. Okay. So success would mean increased sleep time to 7 hours per night. And then we have to make a decision. 4 weeks is done. Was that enough to build that as a habit, or do we want to continue tracking? So we now have that conversation on like, are you graduating? You just go off and do your thing now? Or are we going to continue to track? So we're going from this prescribe to your prescribing, your client is executing, you're reviewing, and we're just going back into this loop, right? Prescribe, execute, review. All right, Ashley, I went 35 minutes. That's all I have for you guys. Before I pass it to Ashley, does anyone have any questions? Can't be long ones. I don't have long. All right, we'll call it good.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to start with mobile first, and then I'll move into the web and the dashboard. Give me 1 second there's extra steps to share my mobile with that I have to do, but okay, so we should be good here. All right, so I'm going to kind of work backwards. So for your clients to be able to connect, they are going to want to go to their profile, and then we're going to go to health data. Then they will be able to click manage connections. And then here you're going to be able to see everything that you're able to connect with right now. And then they will be able to distinguish between what's already connected and what is not connected just based on the different colors. So if I want to disconnect something, you can see that it's orange and I can just hit disconnect there. Once everything is connected, they will be able to see everything that's connected here on this screen. And then when Carl mentioned earlier about being able to set that device priority, so it's like you can see I have Apple Health, Aura, and Chronometer. I can go to device priority and choose which device I want to track which metric. So whether it's activity steps, I have that for Apple Health, and then I have Aura for most of my sleep, heart rate stuff, and then Chronometer for nutrition. And then sometimes too, we have created a help center article just on common syncing issues or data sending issues. So we can always send that over if clients have any issues with that as well. Once it is tracked, or once it's connected, sorry, on their home screen, they are now going to be able to see just their current metrics. So today's readiness, what their current sleep was for the night before, what their current resting heart rate is, their HRV, their current steps, how many calories they've consumed so far. And then it breaks it down even to like protein, carbs, and fats and fiber. And then they can even go farther and then just see more trends data. So when they click that see more trends data, that's just going to bring them to this trends section down here that you'll see is displayed on their like navigation bar at the bottom. And this is going to give them just their historical data too. So once a client connects, it is going to pull all historical data from this device. So not just from the time they connect, but months previous as well. So they'll be able to see the trends, whether they want to see daily, weekly, or monthly view. They can see readiness, they can see movement. You'll see for things like movement, there's two different colors here that kind of initiate what it's tracking. So the light blue is going to tell you your total active time, and then the dark blue is going to be like your steps. And then as we get into sleep, you can see that I have an insight here. So the mobile app will start to provide insights for your clients. One of the things is the insights are not going to coach your clients. They're not going to replace you or contradict anything that you're saying. It's more of that motivational, maybe it's not necessarily motivational, but hey, like your sleep is maybe more consistent or it's decreased. Maybe we need to work on some bedtime strategies, things like that. So this one's just telling me that my sleep has been consistent. So regular, and then it just tells me why that's important. So any of these insights that your client sees will not contradict anything that you're telling them as a coach. And then same thing for resting heart rate. They'll be able to see that heart rate variability and then nutrition as well. And then the nutrition is broken down. You can see in the different shades of green is going to break down the fiber, protein, carbs, and fat. Any questions about mobile? Carl, did I miss anything?
No, not at
Anything
all.
you want to say?
No, no, no. I just hope you eat more than like 900 calories today, Ashley.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I am that person that hates tracking because I did it for so long, and I know that's a me issue. Um, but I feel like that's the mental aspect of it too as well. And I have a 3-year-old. I have to like decide, am I feeding you today or am I tracking my own food? Like that's
To
the
be
real.
fair, Ashley just tracked for this demo call.
You are absolutely well, you're absolutely right. And all the screens that I had to take for demo videos and things like that. So, any questions about mobile app, how to connect, anything like that?
No. Ashley, as you pull up the web app, I'll just add to your like we're not coaching your clients. We're really mindful to keep all of those insights very objective, right? Like we didn't want to get into like subjectivity where we're like saying like you're doing this well, you're not doing this well. It's just like, hey, this is what the data shows. And typically when data shows this, this is what it might mean. So yeah, we're really careful not to contradict what you might be telling your clients there. The insights on your side, which Ashley will talk about now, are a little bit different. Like we're actually trying to help the coach on our side and give them nudges where it's like, here's an insight. This is what you should maybe think about. Maybe increase training load, decrease training load, whatever the case is. All right.
Awesome. Can you guys see my CoachRx screen? Making sure I have the right screen
Yep.
shared. So when you first get into your client list, just to kind of show what your client has connected, and I'll show you there's multiple places where you can see that. Just right here next to their streaks, you can see that there's going to be a little icon here that's showing what they have connected. And if they don't have anything connected, this is where you can prompt them to connect a device. So you would just click this and oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. So if I click this, hit prompt client, it's going to pull up a message down here that you can send them directly with a link will send them to that health data section in their mobile app so that they can start connecting devices there. From the profile section as well, if you click into the client, expand the left sidebar, you will also be able to see what you have connected up here. And just because the majority of my clients have just connected, I don't know how much data I have. So if we get into now what the coach will see, we're going to expand the left sidebar and you'll now have this lifestyle trends section on the left sidebar directly under messages. And then this is going to pull up all that data that we just saw in the mobile app. The client can see, you can also see. And then you also can see next to each section where it's pulling that data from. So readiness, resting heart rate, HRV, and sleep are all coming from Aura, movements coming from Apple, nutrition's coming from. And then you'll be able to see these trends. You have the ability as well to view this over day, week, or the monthly view. You also have the ability, Carl was mentioning when somebody, I think Daniel asked about being able to hide this from the client. This customized section is where you as a coach can kind of customize your dashboard for each client. So you just click customize, and then you can choose what you want to see on this dashboard for your clients. And then you can toggle this off and then just hit the save configuration. And then you can kind of notice here that under resting heart rate, there is a insight here. So if I click in this, it's going to bring up a box and just give us some insight. So maybe obviously this is trending up, so it's a positive insight. Maybe if this was trending down, it's going to give us something with, I don't even know what all the trend, do you know what one of the insights is, Carl, for like resting heart rate if it's trending down? Like I know.
So it'll connect to what you're doing in your design, right? So if someone's resting heart rate is trending up, so you'd have the down arrow because it's a negative indication. It'll take a look at HRV, and then it'll have you consider like what you're giving your client in training load, because that upward resting heart rate means worse recovery and worse efficiency. So that insight would say, take a look at your training load and take a peek at HRV to see if that's trending up or down as well to make a correlation.
Some of these, so like sleep specifically, you can click this see details, and this is actually going to start breaking down where Carl was talking about quality of sleep. So yeah, they might be sleeping 7, 8 hours, but what are the different ranges of sleep that we're getting into? So it's going to get into light sleep, REM, and then deep sleep. So you can track this too, daily, weekly, and monthly. And then same thing, we can't click into the see details for nutrition because all of that is here. And I'm trying to, let me see if and there, I can kind of show you a few different wearables. So for example, this is a Garmin, and I'm not sure Garmin gives a readiness score. So that's might be why you see no data yet, because there will be specific devices that maybe don't give this type of score. And we've had this question twice today about HRV for Apple, Carl. So just kind of, I don't know if you want to share about that, like why we don't have, or if you want me to go into that.
Yeah, I could be quick on it. Yeah, so we're not pulling HRV from Apple because it wouldn't be an accurate trend. So what Apple does is they take HRV scores randomly throughout the day, and then they populate that as the daily HRV score. So they're not aggregating the time in which you're wearing the device and saying, on average, your HRV is this. They're just coming in saying, Tuesday at 3 o'clock, your HRV was this. That's not a true representation of Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So it's not good trending data. So we're not sure if Apple intends to change that. Yeah, no idea. So we're not pulling Apple info in because it would be our trends screen would be, or your client's trends screen, their modal would be inaccurate and would probably be all over the place.
Thanks, Carl.
Hmm.
And then like for this example, for this client, he's not tracking nutrition using any sort of device. So that's why this is showing no data yet as well. So there may be something that, like this client specifically, we're not working on nutrition. He's 65 years old and he wants to be strong and continue to move after retirement. So we're just moving and doing exercise. He's also trying to avoid a knee replacement surgery. So we're doing a lot of things just to maintain strength throughout life. So it's like nutrition isn't something that we necessarily focus on. So if it is something you focus on with clients, you may just need to um, prompt them to connect something if they are tracking. But um, any questions about anything on the dashboard that you're seeing? Anything that I missed, Carl?
Related to the discussion around tracking from Apple, obviously, we have a plethora of devices that you can connect through the Terra integration. But if you have other devices that sit outside of that core list that your clients are using, for instance, if they use a different nutrition tracking app that's not one of those core, you can sync that, have them sync that individual app to their Apple Health Kit, and that data will populate into CoachRx via the health data. Just know that there is a little bit of latency, especially on the first sync. So it might take a 24-hour period for that data to be fully refreshed. And it isn't as instant as the native device being populated into CoachRx. So there might be some lag time. I personally do that with a nutrition app that I use when I'm logging. And now after that initial sync, the latency is very minimal, like 2 to 3 minutes that I notice for it to sync live in CoachRx. But that is an option. Just be mindful of the data decisions that Carl mentioned, like HRV, something that's not being pulled in from Apple Health Kit. I believe that's the only metric that would not be pulled in. And if you guys have questions that come up, like feel free to reach out to our team. We're happy to answer those questions and also continue to improve and think through the best ways to sync all these data sources. But that is an option if they are using a different nutrition app.
And I did find some examples. So where Carl was saying, like, if your HRV is down or your resting heart rate is trending up, so it's a negative down. Here's an example how it's comparing that to HRV and readiness as well. So here are some insights that you might look into, like considering lowering training stress or prioritizing recovery. But if we look at like this readiness and insight, we can also see that this client's sleep dropped from 8 hours in the middle of the week to 4 hours last night. So that's probably why we saw that dip there. So it's just taking into everything into consideration there. Any questions?
Sorry, Ash, I just had another brain thought. I was going to say, but whatever, another idea. One thought is outside of just the insights that are being surfaced here. This is also enabling frictionless tracking for your clients. So whether or not you're prescribing lifestyle, which we hope you are, if you're not prescribing lifestyle and you're using this insights component just to inform design and consultations and overall coaching, the other benefit to this feature release is that frictionless tracking is now available for those clients. So if you're prescribing steps and they were having challenges keeping up on the logging of steps, or the client didn't want to be obsessively tracking those things, but you want visibility into it, that now is enabled by this. So keep in mind all of things.
Yep. And then last piece I want to add, I know we're a couple minutes over, is when you go to your lifestyle calendars now, guys, you'll see an icon. So it's essentially that little squiggly line icon. That means that that metric is connected to a wearable. So, Ashley has movement or active time up now. So now when you do that and that client's connected to that wearable, they don't have to log anything. That wearable is going to automatically update that every single day, and it'll give them a nod for compliance or not based on if they hit whatever Ashley says their target is. So when I talked about at the beginning, a big benefit is more passive lifestyle prescriptions. That's what I meant. So if we have a steps prescription or a nutrition prescription or whatever the case is, as long as that health data point is connected in the back end, all of this will populate without your clients having to do anything. So, when Candace said like frictionless, that is frictionless lifestyle prescribing. You have a goal for them, they can pull up their app, they can see where they're at, they can override, but if they don't want to touch it, you're just going to get that feedback through that lifestyle prescription.
I think we covered that, Candace, on mobile app, like today's highlights.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions? Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. We have November's call next month. Carl and I will be hitting on communication, building relationships with clients, and then we will also kind of be going over just all the features that we have in CoachRx that help you communicate with your clients, consultation notes, messaging. We also will be rolling out a new communication feature soon as well, so we can go over that during that time, but it'll be released before November, so I'm assuming. But
Thank
all right.
you.
It's great seeing everybody. Have a great
Yes.
day.
See ya.
Bye, guys.